starting now. I was just kidding. So starting now. Why did Cloud9 fail at the 2023 League of Legends World Championship? And we're going to also detail all the issues that Cloud9 had in 2023 as well. So let's start all the way at the beginning of this, which was last year during the LCS 2022 summer split, okay? So they ended up winning that when they brought back their long-tenured mid laner, Jensen. They went to the 2022 League of Legends World Championship where they got handily destroyed and they only won one game, which was against Fnatic. Then going into 2023, as people already knew, Sven was actually, role swapped to support in 2022 LCS, summer, right? They actually wanted to get a brand new support, but Berserker wanted Sven to be a support because he liked playing with Sven specifically, okay? Then Jensen's contract was really huge. Jack had said in a video that they did in the offseason that they wanted to keep Jensen. They did, but, he was looking at his dollars, and it just really wasn't going to happen with what Jensen was asking for.
Yeah.
So he chose to sell Jensen to Dignitas, and Jack went and got Didplex, who was on Vitality B, which is Vitality's Academy roster, and they chose to get a Menace who had been on many teams, let's just say, in the more indie scene for League of Legends, right? So they play so the LCS 2023 spring split starts. They play Diplex first. They play him for the first 6 games.
6 games. Yeah, right. It's like first 2 weeks or first 2 to 3 weeks.
Then after that, they play a Menace. Now, context for this is they heard a Menace was toxic, right? So before they even chose to bring him on to the team, they were talking with his agent, and obviously the communication between Korean and English is hard over the phone. Blabber takes over the conversation, and he wanted to speak to Menace directly. And after what a Menace says, Jack asked Blabber, "Did you want a Menace?" He said yes. Okay, so they chose to put a Menace in their Academy roster when the Academy was still a thing in the LCS at the time to give him time to obviously potentially, iron out whatever kinks they thought he needed to iron out before playing on the main roster. I'm just being honest with you guys right now. They most likely always intended for a Menace to be the starter, but they didn't really know how he would pan out potentially, so they put him in Academy first. They end up playing a Menace against Golden Guardians, actually, during his opening game in the LCS 2023 spring split, actually, where he played Victor. He was pretty bad on Victor. He lost the first game. The next day they play against TSM, and then Menace actually looked pretty good. Like, looking at his spring split, he looked actually really good. And if you're looking at how his house performance went, you're like, okay, they definitely made the right decision and potentially swapping them out. Now, I will say this. Diplex himself wasn't that bad, and I do think he could have been a pretty good mid laner on any LCS roster.
Oh, yeah.
Not just in spring, but just during the summer as well. But the performance difference between them, you could see why they went with the Menace, right?
Yeah.
Now, another piece of context we need to understand about Cloud9 this year is the actual level of the LCS was horrible. Let me repeat that again. The actual level of the LCS was literally dog and horse shit mixed together, okay? Dog horse shit this year. Level of quality was terrible, okay? So, they go into the playoffs, right? They face off against CLG, who was still around at the time. And they looked rough against CLG. Now, CLG was the only team in the previous split to actually take Cloud9 to 5 games. So you're thinking, okay, that'll be what this series is going to look like. And it almost did, but they managed to win in one less game than they did in the summer split against CLG. Then they play up against FlyQuest, right, in the LCS 2023 spring split semifinals, okay? And they handily destroyed FlyQuest. This is also the FlyQuest that was massively having issues with Ayla and Vikla at the time. Yep. They handily destroyed them. Then it was the
Press, because Press wanted what's up. They got rid of what's up. Now Press was like, okay, and you could tell Press was losing face of his team, and that whole situation is an example of why you keep, even if someone is worse, even if someone's higher paid, sometimes you gotta keep the team while it's fresh and good.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then people also have to factor in when they beat FlyQuest. Okay, FlyQuest at that point had already had massive issues both in the game, out of the game. EG, who was also billed as to be one of the best teams in the spring split, faced off against Golden Guardians. They also lost in pretty convincing fashion. So that super team just failed right out of the playoffs too.
But let's give context to the EG.
Mm-hmm.
Half of them had COVID, or JoJo had COVID. Then
Right.
someone else got COVID. Then all of them had a quarantine, and then they all caught COVID. And then by the time they got back, they were never 100% healthy after that. Plus, JoJo was the only healthy one, but they still had a quarantine because one of the players still had COVID. And by the time they were literally falling out.
And also got to factor in, if you're quarantining like that while you also have COVID, you can't do very well in scrims because you can't really be in the same room together as well. 100 Thieves, I mean, they had issues the entire spring split.
They had issues. Their main issue was 2 rookies, was 2 vets, plus one of the vets did what it really should have just retired after the seasons before. And Double have taken 2 years off, kind of threw everything off. And plus closer on a new team now have to work with new players.
Right.
And it just never it gelled toward the end. And then that one top mess up at the end, literally like, okay, cool. It was like you lose 2/5 of your team in a matter of hours.
Right. And people have to look at just all these teams we're mentioning to impact their performance. So FlyQuest, who was really strong at the beginning with Winsome, traded out Winsome for Ayla, and it just looked really bad.
And then
100 Thieves, who was kind of built as like a 4th, 5th place team, they looked just their performance was so up and down during the entire split. EG, who's built as a super team, up and down performance throughout the split, but even before they had COVID,
it was a decent performance. Decent performance, but once they got sick, it was like, oh shit, okay.
Also, not to mention Golden Guardians, who were basically just kind of rising up throughout the spring split. They ended up winning.
They were rising up.
Maybe it was just all the teams with the better players were collapsing to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's beat a team while they're down kind of situation. It's like a football where a team that has no business getting to the Super Bowl gets there because every other team around them is injured. Like.
And then in the playoffs of the LCS 2023 spring split, Golden Guardians beat 100 Thieves narrowly. I mean, this could have went either way. And I'm still saying this. Had 100 Thieves won that, it's a chance they make the finals run. Who knows, honestly? It was that close between the two.
If 100 Thieves still has someday over tenacity, I think they make the finals.
Very possible. Then after that, Golden Guardians beat Evil Geniuses. Then they narrowly beat FlyQuest. Okay? It literally takes Licorice playing Malphite, landing a 4-man knockup for them to even win that game 4. So they can obviously later on win game 5 to face Cloud9. Now, if you're looking at everything we just mentioned with Cloud9, there is no real actual competition in the LCS. Now, each year, each split will vary amongst that actual description. But this matters much more this year when we're talking about this specific version of Cloud9. Then, in the finals against Golden Guardians during the LCS 2023 spring split, obviously, Cloud9 are showing really bad levels of gameplay. We're having like a game 1 where they easily could be winning with their comp, but they're somehow losing with this really good early game comp, as well as this comp happens to be a really good late game comp as well, just so happens to be the mixture of champions that they picked, right? They crawl their way back to winning game 1, lose game 2, and as the games keep piling on, you're like, okay, they're clearly just the better team. It matters to win the LCS 2023 spring split. Now you have MSI 2023. They face off against BLG first, and they just get absolutely railed. It's not close whatsoever. They pretty much lose basically in 3 minutes, honestly. The same way that they lost to the Asian teams last year at Worlds. Now, the reason why people gave them a little bit more leeway then is because obviously they had just came together as a team, and you're kind of thinking like, okay, this can't really be a good team in general because they just came together. They couldn't have obviously synergized with Jensen to the rest of the team. There's reasons you could say it wouldn't have worked during last year's World, right? But then you still put in context, that's still 4 of the same players together anyway, right? Because Berserker been there the entire year, so with Fudge, and so is Blabber. So you also must consider that after they lost to BLG, they faced Golden Guardians. Now, the thing with this year's international competition, we kept having like inter-regional matches at international competition. So the only series that Cloud9 won, or the only games that they won, was against a team that they've been scrimming against, not only all spring split long, but they also faced this team 2 times in the regular season, as well as the finals as well. And throughout, you're like, wait a minute, I've seen enough to know that they're just the better team, right? So they get clapped by BLG, and they completely just get destroyed by, and they themselves destroyed Golden Guardians, right? Then, because they lost to BLG, they're in the lower bracket, they have to face Gen G. And then, obviously, the Gen G series plays out just like the BLG series. They get absolutely curb stomped into the dirt. They lost in like 3 minutes, okay? So, now, the reason why I'm pinpointing MSI being the real big indicator of how badly they were going to perform the rest of the year is because people must understand 2 things if you're new to the game. For one, these guys scrim against these other guys. Now, people can debate all day long of whether or not scrimming against these guys is actually effective. But if you do scrim against them, which we know they do, and you lose as hard as they do, and you get exposed as hard as you do, then I don't know how to explain it. Like the mentality and how you think about the game just gets warped in a way where now you start doubting all of that you were good at because you got beaten this hard. Remember, guys, they literally said on interviews they were losing in like 5 minutes. Okay, it was that bad. Okay,
pretty much what it is if you get beat hard enough, you'll start doubting your own skills and be like, it's like happens all the time in Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh! When you either lose in a way where you're not used to, or you lose to somebody or a deck, or in this case a team. It's like, and sometimes that doubt lingers longer than it should. And it just sits there. You're like, oh, shit, this is bad.
Then, because the reason why that matters is because in the spring split, they did end up getting first place in the regular split. Now, this was in spring split where these other teams are definitely not playing good. They're not. But when you're actually looking at their gameplay in particular, they're going for aggressive plays. I mean, Blabber's playing really aggressive. Berserker's winning all his lanes. Fudge is doing very well. You're thinking like, okay, they're going to take this momentum into MSI, and even though they were probably going to end up losing all their games, at least they'll look somewhat competitive. That did not happen in the games at all, guys. That only happened against Golden Guardians because they knew they could do that against Golden Guardians, actually. Yeah. So at MSI is 2023 is where I think they really, really, really got so blasted in scrims that they literally all mentally lost confidence, not just in each other, just how they even played the game. So the coaches have to basically draft in this way where it has to cover for weaknesses, as well as knowing our play style is just essentially shot because these guys can't play this play style anymore, So MSI 2023 is ending. The LCS 2023 summer split begins. And yes, at the end of the result, Cloud9 still ended up getting first. But now you must put in this level of context, which is a lot of those games that they won, those weren't like the same stomp games they had in spring. In spring, they were just pulling out their fucking cock and just shoving it down, right? That wasn't happening in summer. What happened in summer was that they weren't even winning a lot of these games. A lot of these games were won off the back of this team is just so much clearly worse. They're just throwing, actually. Yeah. Like Cloud9 in some of the games that they won in spring Cloud9 in some of the games they were winning in summer weren't because they were being aggressive. That only happened like against certain teams they knew they could do that against. Some of the games that they even won, or a good amount of them, in that 13-5 record that they have, a lot of that was off the back of this team is just so bad. They're not capitalizing on anything, and we could just kind of just get our way to winning because we know they're not going to challenge us at these certain moments in the game, right? So that happens, and they end up getting first place, like with spring, but it's very different between spring and summer. It's very different in the performance, obviously, okay? So then in the first round of the LCS 2023 Summers playoffs, they face off against NRG, right? Against NRG. I'm pretty sure that was their first match.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. Let me make sure I'm checking that for the video.
I remember.
Yeah, it was right. Yeah, it was up against yes. No, sorry, it was EG.
EG, yeah.
So they play against EG, and the same thing happens. They are winning games, or they are in winning game state situations that they really shouldn't be winning in. Guys, people keep saying, oh, that's not true. Actually pay attention to the game and watch it. They are simply not in a position where they should be winning this, and they're only really winning it because these other people just can't understand how to play out of their ahead position, Yep. There's like one of these games between EG and NRG where they're actually the ones being aggressive and actually ending the game. It was the EG game I think it was game 2 they had that, but the other games, I'm not saying EG would have won because EG had their own layer of issues, okay? This just looks really bad. You can tell their playstyle is really getting sus here, you know? Like, are they getting really laxed? Why can't they mentally bounce back and start stomping games like it did in spring? And then after they beat EG 3-0, they face off against NRG. This NRG series looked really disgusting. Now, people got to understand, NRG has this weird effect, apparently, where they can really play good against, like, better teams, but play really shit against other teams. And this was COG converted. Obviously, they got bought out by NRG. And this is NRG now. And remember, NRG 2-0 Cloud9 during the split, actually. Keep in mind.
Yeah.
NRG actually beat every better team than them 2-0. The reason why they weren't higher in the standings is because they actually lost to every shittier team. They weren't actually first. They actually would have been first. They had actually had a winning record against worse teams than them.
If they would have beat the bottom 2 teams, they would have been 15-3. They could have been 15-3.
Right.
Even 13-5. Because 100 Seeds always plays, or they always played each other tough. It was like when Energy was better, 100 Seeds would beat them. But flip the script. But it's like the issue is you're dropping easy games to Dig It and IMT and TS7. You're like, wait a second, what the hell? You will literally put your whole foot in C9's ass and then get whacked by IMT the next day. You're like, wait a second, what the fuck is going on? And it's like,
now keep in mind, NRG is a team that finished in the regular season with the LCS 2023 summer split 9-9. Okay, they were like 5th place actually because of their horrifyingly weird, inconsistent play style. This series against Cloud9, this was not a good series by them by any stretch of imagination. It really does look like NRG could beat them, but narrowly because NRG at this point in time still was having their massive inconsistencies.
They were still trying to figure out what was going on because, of course,
they lost and Cloud9 beat them 3-0, right? So then, so after NRG beat Team Liquid in the LCS 2023 Summer Split Finals 3rd place match, because this decides to go to Worlds, NRG beat Team Liquid. They beat Cloud9 in the finals, and yeah, this is kind of surprising. But if you're really looking back, if you're looking back at all of C9's playoff series between EG and NRG, you're like, that should be the expected result. They have been playing bad. They legitimately have been playing bad. That was going to happen at some point. It just so happened to happen, obviously, at the finals, where you can't have that happen because how can you fix that? There's not an extra week or more weeks after that in the split to fix your issues. That's it. You just lost at the most crucial moment, even during the series. After game 1, because they won game 1 in a pretty convincing fashion, the drafting was not only just bad, the gameplay was terrible. They just played extremely bad. But they've been played badly the entire split. It just never got punished enough, honestly. Okay, so that's the LCS 2023 summer split. Now we're going to Worlds 2023, okay? So at Worlds 2023, you're probably thinking like, okay, if they get very favorable opponents, then it could work for them, right? But you're also still remembering they were playing bad, okay? Keep in mind, they were still playing bad. So unless they went to scrims and they got an ultra scrim buff, they were going to be fizzling out at maybe 2 wins or getting knocked out the same way like G2 did potentially. The highest is how G2 got knocked out. The lowest is probably where like, what's the lowest you could probably have them at? Team Liquid, we'll say like 0. So Team Liquid will be our bottom. G2's like your top, right?
Yeah.
There's no real middle because this team never really had a solid middle ground. It was always pretty much you play this good or you just play extremely just passive and you just let the game go by. Okay, so during Worlds 2023, they actually ended up facing in the Swiss stage. Cloud9 faced Mad Lions, who they beat pretty handedly. And don't worry, guys, we'll make a video about Mad Lions just like this on another show, okay? So Cloud9 beat Mad Lions pretty handedly, right? They faced against LNG. Here's the thing about LNG is LNG in that game wasn't really ever like losing to them, honestly.
Yeah.
Cloud9 flipped Baron at a really crucial moment, okay? And they had an advantage. Their bad team fighting caught up to them again. They gave away the advantage and they lost to LNG. The difference here with LNG compared to every LCS team and even NRG, when just LPL or LCK teams, the strong ones, see a disadvantage you have or see how you messed up something, they're going to immediately, not with hesitation, capitalize on your mistake. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. They know exactly how you're going to play that situation. If you play it out badly, they're like, all right, cool. They're trash. Now we win. Remember, after Cloud9 flipped the Baron and messed up their team, when they started to siege the tier 2 and try to go into their base, they lost. Lose to LNG, okay? Then after that, they faced off against T1. This is probably the epitome of their bad drafting catching to them. T1 absurdly destroyed them. It's not even close. There is no closeness in this game. This was T1 going, all right, this is probably, I'll be honest with you, that's probably what most of their scrims look like anyway, for being completely honest with themselves here. That's probably what all their scrims look like, outside of maybe, because in their videos, their players are like, yeah, we had a pretty bad day against Asian teams. That's all the days. Let's not play coy about that, right? You know? And then they lose to T1, lose to LNG. So that means they have to end up beating Fnatic in their best of 3. So they get one more shot, and they lose to Fnatic. Now, what's the biggest conundrum of all of this at Worlds 2023 for Fnatic? Sorry, for Cloud9, actually, is not just drafting. I think the drafting was really, really bad, but the players as well. Okay, so in the Fnatic series, I'll ask you. Did you remember? We were watching, remember?
Yeah.
Remember that game one they played against Fnatic?
Yeah.
The game where they had an absurdly big advantage, but struggled to end the game. They're flipping a Baron. They don't need to flip a Baron. They're so far ahead. Literally, if you actually just fight them 4v5, they can't beat you. They legitimately can't fight you. Okay, guys? They're in a position where they were flipping Barons, and they had moments in the game where they were giving Fnatic advantages, even though Fnatic were so far behind. Like, they had an advantage of, like, Fudge doing well in lane, okay? So Fudge did well in lane, which is barely going to happen at Worlds ever, okay? Then he was on Rumble, and he actually handily beat Oscurinen on Jax, right? But Fudge hadn't been playing all well the tournament as well, and it was pretty suspect during the LCS 2023 Summer Split as well, okay? So during the Fnatic game, they struggle afterwards, right? But the game one, it really is, what is going on with this team? You can tell their confidence is all over the place. They aren't confident that they can make aggressive plays without anything backfiring on them. They are not sure what they should be doing at various moments in the game. Just all that's from game one. This one had a 10,000 gold advantage too, okay? So then afterwards, Fnatic beat them in games 2 and 3, mostly off the back of, like, you know, Humanoid playing really, really well. Fudge getting the Renekton pick, sucking on it. I mean, this is something we'll go into the players later, but this is just going over the actual game itself right now. So the later 2 games, they end up getting beat by Fnatic, and it's just terrible, honestly. Now, that's their year, okay? Now, we're going to talk about the players themselves, okay? So, how would I say this? Fudge, if he's going to ask for that amount of resources, then he needs to be able to carry the game. I really don't know why Blabber himself keeps going to Fudge's lane, knowing he's pretty bad at converting leads, when he doesn't go bot lane. Why doesn't he go bot lane and help out their winning bot lane, or laner, which is Berserker? Why does Berserker not get resources? I just don't get it, you know? Why does Berserker not get resources when he's the one that's clearly able to convert his lead into a win? Remember, Berserker was winning them team fights at Worlds 2023, even when he had no jungle pressure at all. None. He just had to just hopefully, maybe, hope that his jungler would peel for him, you know? Or potentially help him team fighting, right? Fudge was just bad at Worlds. He's not good at carries. Unless it's some mega OP pick like Rumble. He ran it down insanely hard, actually, you know? And I just don't understand why Blabber would position all of that in his trying to get someone ahead who clearly can't convert his leads, right? So then Blabber himself at Worlds, not aggressive enough. He looked like he didn't really know what to do at all in situations where they're behind. Remember, in League, it's also good to understand what you need to do when you're behind to come back into a game. So even with the LPL and LCK teams, they know if they're behind, they know how to get out of that situation. LCS teams do not. Neither do LEC teams. When they get beaten so hard, or they're in a inadvantageous position on the map, they don't know how to play it out. As we said before, happened with Yike, happened with Blabber, happened with Shio, actually happened with a lot of the Western junglers. When they're behind, they have no clue what to do. Blabber just wasn't aggressive, really didn't know what to do on the map most of the time unless they were in a super hard winning position, actually. And a Menace at Worlds, the only games he played well were the Fnatic ones. I mean, he played pretty badly in the other games too. I'll say that. He played pretty well in the Fnatic series, but too little too late, honestly. You know, it's pretty much just way too late in the year to be playing like that because there's nothing you can do. The rest of the team is complete shit for the most part, you know? So, yeah, that's how I feel about the Cloud9 players so far. I think they're looking back at the years in total. I think you'll be getting new players, you know? I don't think Fudge is staying. I think his time is up at Cloud9. I don't see a world to get rid of Blabber. I kind of would maybe look for a new jungler at this point. He's been there for like 6 years. Maybe it's time to look for a new jungler at this point, you know? He's been there since 2018 summer.
Who'd you get, though?
That's the problem, is if you're building a team, and this is what I'll say for all the other videos we're going to do about teams like this, it's not really about getting better. It's more about what do you want out of your jungler? Like, what do you want out of a top laner? You know? Because that's why the LPL and LCK teams are good. Not because of the raw mechanics themselves. They have specific things they want their players to do, you know? It feels like with LEC and LCS teams, they want the players to all be carries, while also they want them to all be like weak side players, while also wanting them to all like, you know, have a mixture of both. And it's like, nah, that can't work for everyone. That just can't function, right? So if you want to keep Blabber because he's a carry jungler, then you don't need a carry top laner then. You need a top laner that can play carries, but can also just play weak side top laners and carry while playing weak side top laners. You're like, what the hell is that concept? You can do it. It's hard to explain, but that can be a thing. Basically, you want a player who can play Sion as well as he plays Renekton. You know, you're not getting a lot of kills, but you're impacting the game the same. That's kind of the concept of it, right? A Menace, I just don't see him saying. I think he's played outside of Spring. He's looked pretty bad most of the year, honestly. I mean, he single-handedly griefed that game 4 against NRG when he had Yone. Remember that, right? He literally single-handedly lost that himself. Right? But they gave him all the resources and he had to win that game. And he was ahead and he threw it, right? But even at Worlds, he played badly too. Okay? After that, you have Berserker. I would personally try to keep him as best you can. I would, but it all kind of depends on does he want to stay. You know? Yeah. I wouldn't want him going to another team, especially any rivals, but it just depends on if he wants to stay. That's it. I don't think Zen's really ever been a good support, if I'm being honest here. I think he's been pretty meh for the most part. Some people say he was second best support in LCS. For this year, that means nothing. I'm just saying that really means nothing. We have no competition, honestly. So I'll ask you, what do you think about the Cloud9 players going into the off season for 2023?
Berserker's the only one I would keep. Maybe Blabber, but it's like I don't think there's any other jungler
yeah, that's the thing. Is
there LCS that's better?
Yeah, because the thing here is because there's certain valuable positions in North America that people try to keep, right? The really hardest ones to come by is junglers and supports. Everything else you could kind of just get away with, right?
Yeah.
That's why you see like imports being like junglers for the most part, or, you know, potentially supports always get like big name supports potentially. But I see Cloud9 getting 3 to 4 new players in this offseason. This is a very, very bad showing this year, and this was just pretty disappointing when you're looking at the level of gameplay for this line of players, and that's the result you're getting, you know? Like, they really only convincingly beat Mad Lions, and Mad Lions is pretty jank for the most part, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, guys, that is my thoughts on Cloud9 for 2023 and why I think they failed. And a lot of that comes off of, you know, not just bad drafting, because that could be applied to any team, just bad levels of gameplay, decision-making on the map. Macro was really bad. Objective control was really bad. If you're talking about just basics at Worlds, because that's what recently happened for them at Worlds, Fudge getting just absolutely destroyed. Can't play carries very well. Laned like shit. Got destroyed candidly in a lot of matches. Blabber not being aggressive enough. Not knowing what to do when he's behind. Not knowing what to do when he's ahead. Menace just is a menace. He's just dog shit. His eyes are this small. He just can't see shit, obviously. Berserker not getting any assistance at all. Even a menace did not visit his lane to help or roam, right? Menace just can't roam properly at all, you know? Zen, I mean, he's just he's doing as well as he can, but there's not much more he can do. He's not going to have an upside to him like Mickey X or someone like Lehens or someone like fucking what's the Genji support? Oh, Delight. He's not going to be on that level. So at that point, you might as well get a new player. You know, if this is the level you're cool, it's like you can get something better than that, right? So,
exactly.
So yeah, we'll be doing this kind of thing for other, you know, orgs as well. Mad Lions is the next one because I would love to rip into those guys, actually, you know. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This was well, we recorded this during the Cloud9 podcast that we hold every single Sunday, 5 or 5:30 p.m. PST every week, actually. So see you guys later. Like, comment, and subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I'm MSK.
Peace.
See you guys later. Deuces. Peace. All right. Well, that's over. We'll be here for like another 5 minutes, and then we're good. What's up, bro? How you doing, buddy? What's up, Justin? How you doing, man?
What's up?
How you guys doing tonight? Deuces. Goodbye.